Hey, welcome to your day off. My name is Corey, and of course, I'm sitting with my best friend, Tony.
What's going on, homie?
What's up, buddy?
Dude, man, we got a pretty cool podcast today, man.
Yeah, I can't wait. But first, before we get into that, we have a couple people we have to thank, of course. We have to thank Premier Philly for bringing us up and gave us a classroom this morning. That was our first go at it, so that was pretty awesome.
Absolutely. And Salon Centric by allowing us to use the VIP room.
VIPs.
Yep. This weekend to do the rest of our podcast.
Yeah, thank you very, very much, Salon Centric, and that whole sales team and all those people there. So thanks for having us up, and thanks for bringing us in. But our guest today, we met him last June, I guess, right? June of 2018.
Yeah, over a year ago.
And we actually met him at a Premiere event. That was Premiere Orlando 2018. Funny, he was kind of when we did the podcast with Rob and Lane, the Reuzel boys. He was kind of their handler. He was like kind of bringing them through the crowd, and if you know how Rob goes through a crowd, Rob and Lane go through a crowd, they need handlers because they don't get anywhere by themselves. So Kurtis was damn, I did it, didn't I?
Yeah.
So
that's
our guest today is Kurtis Lawrence, but Kurtis got a really interesting story. He's a barber, and I kind of just can't wait to get in.
Dude, one of the nicest human beings.
I mean, let's not push it.
Dude, I mean, he's been nothing but just. I mean, man, awesome, awesome.
Here's what Kurtis means to our podcast is that at the beginning of 2019, we made it a conscious effort to bring on more barbers, and Kurtis has definitely been the conduit before that because he introduced us to not just Rob and Lane of the Reuzel guys, but he also introduced us to Matty Conrad. And got us on with Matty Conrad and a few of the other barbers, which is just now we've had the opportunity to interview a few or bring a few on the podcast.
Yeah, and then hopefully we get a slew of them in the future. But I mean, outside of that, I mean, just as a person, man, this dude's been great to us.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Great guy, and we and also what he for the podcast we talk a lot about tech stuff, and he's always up on the tech.
Yeah,
Anyways, we'll get into this.
It's over my head, so
I know. So I kind of cat out of the bag, but our podcast today is with Kurtis Lawrence, and you can actually find him on Instagram at Kurtis The Stash. And if you ever see him walking a convention floor, you'll know why he's called The Stash. So, Mr. Kurtis Lawrence, welcome to your day off.
Thank you, guys. How are y'all today?
Awesome, man. How you doing?
I am absolutely wonderful.
That's awesome. So,
what happened to the jacket, bro?
It's hot down here.
You never ever see Kurtis in a jacket. And he came in today with a jacket. No, it's gone. It's gone.
Like we don't have executive Kurtis anymore.
Right? No. Yeah.
He's saying it's hot in the VIP room.
It's hot in this convention center, period.
Right. Yeah, man, thank you so much, brother, for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure working with y'all the last year. I've had a lot of fun with y'all.
Oh my gosh, we
had
shared
some
a
real
bunch of laughs, man.
I have a wonderful job where I get to laugh a lot for who I work for, so I'm very blessed in that, and I think.
Yeah, isn't it amazing though? Just like this industry, like how you can have fun. I mean, we've had a blast doing this, right?
Oh, I bet. I can only imagine, and the people you've talked to has been amazing. And then me.
Thank you.
Best yet.
I know. You saved the best for last,
man. No,
we can retire after this, Tony.
I wish.
So, Kurtis, where'd you grow up?
I actually grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. My father was in the Navy, so we traveled around a lot when I was a child. We kind of settled in Charleston. My mom was from Charleston. My dad met my mother in South Carolina. So I grew up there, went to high school there, went to cosmetology school there, actually.
In South Carolina?
In South Carolina.
So, I mean, we know you as a barber, but you actually have a cos license?
I started out Cosmo. My mother was a hairstylist, and back in the day, 1900s maybe.
I'm telling.
When I started kind of figuring out what I wanted to do with my life, and never really thought I would cut hair. My mom did it, and I hated it. I always go to the shop on Saturday, and little oldies are pinching your cheek. I got to sweep up, and she's yelling at me because the towels aren't done. Or I hated it. And then I went off to college and started cutting a couple guys, and I got some money in my pocket, and things were good. And then you start knowing people, and I'm like, yeah, I could do this, which kind of took me down the wrong path at my young age.
Yeah.
Yeah. About 17, 18, I started selling drugs.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
All right, Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, Snoop Dogg, exactly. I was in college. I was away from my mother for the first time.
Right.
You couldn't tell me nothing.
So were you like just weed or like?
Yeah,
other
just
stuff
weed. I
too?
was cutting hair, slinging weed, just like most barbers I know.
So I guess we're not going to get those barbers.
No, just kidding.
End of the game.
Yeah, just kidding.
So so you were doing like fades and joints? Is that the deal?
Fades and joints and doing it right there in the dorm room. And I had the RA in my pocket because I cut his hair for free. I could basically come and go and do as I please.
Oh, wow.
So I enjoyed it until ATF kicked the door in.
What?
ATF DA.
How much weed were you slinging?
Well, I got caught up in a big sting, and I just happened to be like way down the totem pole, but they took us all down at the same time.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I was 18 years old.
You were 18 and you were in the dorm?
I was 18 in the dorm, and they kicked my door in. It was 2 ATF agents and 2 FBI and 2 DEA. It was it was a tri-state thing that they were doing at the time.
Are you serious?
It was huge.
What college was this?
I was in University of North Carolina at Charlotte.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Dude, so when they
it's
kicked
not like
in the
no
door,
small school either.
No, exactly. That means he had a lot of weed to sling.
And it's so funny, it's legal now.
I know, it's so stupid. Well, we'll get to that.
Yes.
Dude, when they kicked your door in, what was your heart doing?
You hear that? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Well,
bad boy.
Pretty much. Not much you can do, man, because before you know it, there's a couple guns in your face, and basically I was just selling weed.
And you were a kid, though,
Yeah,
too.
I was 18. I never had any trouble with the cops. I never even had, basically talked to a cop,
Right.
Never had dealings with them like that.
Whoa. They kick you down or anything?
No, actually, I was sitting in my chair and was doing homework. Kicked the door in. More than it surprised me than anything else,
Right.
So, boom.
Did you have stuff in the dorm?
I had a little bit. I never had a lot on me anyway because I wasn't that big. I was just
Right.
selling weed to the guys I was cutting hair, just trying to make extra money. That was my retail.
You don't need pomade. You need a joint.
Some Durban Poison, maybe. Some Pineapple Express.
Oh my God, he's selling it like retail. He's got a whole selection. He's small time. He's got like canisters and stuff.
Well, back in those days, it didn't have a name. It was just weed.
Just weed.
Yeah, there was no strains and all that shit back then. But I am dating myself now.
Yeah, right. It was just all trash weed.
Yeah, it was Mexican swag.
Shake it out of the bag.
And to hope you have more weed than you do seeds.
Popping in your face. So Kurtis, so they kicked the door in. I just can't imagine being 18. You must have been shitting yourself.
I was absolutely shitting myself. And even more so when I went to jail and they set my bond at $1 million.
Whoa.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So you get arrested that night.
I got arrested in the afternoon, about 3:30 in the afternoon, I guess.
So they drag you out in handcuffs. Everyone's staring
in front
at
of
you.
everybody in them because my dorm was in the middle of the college campus. So
And were you the only one arrested on the campus?
I was the only one arrested on campus.
Come on, you couldn't have been the only dude on campus.
And I was in that mix of the people I was running with. I was the only one on the campus. But
So you didn't? Did you know how deep?
oh yeah, well to some extent I knew who I was getting it, or the organization I was getting it from. Yes.
Man, I can't imagine 18-year-old kid being
Yeah, dude,
dragged.
it was scary as shit. And I have a $1 million bond. I didn't get out of jail at all. I went
$1
straight.
million bond.
$1 million bond, and I literally.
Do you know why it was $1 million?
It was part of this thing. It was a federal thing.
Uh-huh.
So it had something to do. I don't understand the whole law thing. That's why I'm a barber. But they had already set one's bond for a certain amount, and because we were all charged with the same crime, they had to charge us all some law, some crap. Never really understood it. And I was young, too.
Yeah, sure.
And I went through the whole, I have a real animate feeling about, now that people have been to prison or trying to get out. And I've worked a lot, and I've done, county jail stuff with, trying to set up barber programs and stuff, because that's basically where I came from.
Right.
So, I cut hair when I was in prison. And when I got out of prison, I went directly from the bus off prison straight to the cosmetology school, because I knew if I didn't, I wasn't going to go to cosmetology school.
Right.
I was going to go back to selling drugs again.
Right.
So the day I got out of, I spent 5 years in prison.
Hold on. Yeah, let's slow down to there. So they drag you out of there. They set your bond. Once it was $1 million, you're like, oh, I'm not getting out.
Never getting out. Honestly, at that point, I thought I was going to jail I thought I was going to die in prison. I didn't understand the whole, what was going on. I was 18.
Right. Why would you? I'd never been in trouble.
I'd
So it's
never
not
been
like
in trouble. Didn't understand the whole thing, and then.
It's a federal pen now, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was a federal crime at the time because it was cross counties, cross states, and it was a big sting. That's why it was so big, and the DEA and the FBI and everybody.
So like, what was going through your head? Like, you're like, fuck, mom's gonna find out, dad's gonna find out, all that stuff.
I didn't even want to call my mother.
No.
Never. No, I didn't want to call her at all.
Is dad in the picture or just your mom?
Yeah, my dad was. Yeah, they were still together at the time. And my brother was 14, I guess.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So I mean, you didn't want to, but did you actually talk to him, or did the police go like, "Hey, we got your son"?
I don't know how she actually found out. My father was the first one that came to see me in jail, and I was there like 2 weeks.
In jail before you came
I was
to see
like
you?
2 weeks before it came.
Did you think they'd ever show up, or were you like?
I didn't know, like, people would try when you're in prison or whatever, or jail, because prison and jail are two different things. But when you're in jail, you got jailhouse lawyers and they're trying to tell you this or whatever. So I really didn't understand what was going on.
I just see you as like this young kid, just naive as can be.
Dude, I was scared
complete
shitless.
Fish out of water.
Absolutely scared shitless.
And are you in jail next to the same guys that are deeper in the organization? Or are you guys kind of in together?
The guy that I was getting mine from, yeah, we were in the same pod, I guess you call it. So yeah, but all the other ones I didn't know. I just know the organization I was getting it from, and I was getting it from the one little dude, you know.
Right.
Did you ever
We were in
get
the same
threatened?
No. Actually, because of the organization, nah.
You're good.
Nah. I mean, I can go. It was the Hell's Angels.
Right.
So out of it, scared just of that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so were they scared you were going to talk or anything like that?
Yeah,
I mean, you were the
just
kid.
that
You were
whole
the kid in
thing.
the
I
bunch.
was, 18. Well, when I started, I was 17.
Right.
And I'm dealing with a big motorcycle gang and this, that, and the other. And
You must have felt a badass before you got arrested.
to some extent, you get a little, you got a shitload of money in your pocket, and you're 18. You can't tell you nothing.
Right. You're like, I got the Hell's Angels behind me.
Yeah.
Right?
What you gonna do with it?
Right.
Wow.
So it was definitely life changing. I'll say that.
So what was that conversation like with your dad when he came in? He was the first one to see you.
Do you know, it's funny you say that, Tony, because me and my father, even on that day, never discussed it. Right up until the day he passed away.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Never discussed me going to prison. I mean, we talked about, like, you okay? Do you need anything? Or whatever. Like, the whole time that was fun. But we never discussed how I got there, why we got there. I never told him I was sorry or anything like that. So we never, my dad was a really hardcore man, like, you didn't talk about your feelings. And, that's your typical thing you grew up with. So, and I grew up like that too. So, and I'm still like that to some extent. I've had to learn how to talk about things. Right. Of course.
Yeah.
Right.
So did you appreciate that, or were you kind of like, come on, Dad, fucking ask me something?
The more now that I think about that, it didn't really bother me, I think, until after he passed away.
Yeah.
I think that was more, like that coulda, shoulda, woulda, things that I maybe wanted to have said and, never really did.
Right.
Right.
Wow.
How about your mom?
My mom passed away before my father. She had an umbilical hernia. It pinched her intestines off, and she passed away in the middle of the night.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So my dad found her the next morning. So my stepdad. Mm-hmm. I have a really funny story about that. I'm from South Carolina. We're Hicks. We're hillbillies down there, and my dad and my mom were together, and they split up, and I had a babysitter, and I had a friend growing up that was the babysitter's son, that we were really, really good friends for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And when I turned 11, I found out he was my half brother. Dad was dibbling the babysitter. So my mom and dad got divorced. My dad moved 2 blocks down the street to my stepmom's house.
Oh my gosh. Everyone has the same name on that block.
Yeah, almost 20 years later, they get divorced, and my dad goes back down the street to my mom's house.
Oh my gosh.
And they got remarried.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So he was your stepdad and your dad.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Well, we do shit like that in South Carolina.
Apparently. There's no denying it.
Yeah.
Whoa. So.
But no, talking about the conversation with your mom, did she ask you like, how in the heck you get in here? When she
my
came
mom
in?
reamed my ass.
She reamed your ass?
Yeah, she reamed my ass. What the fuck are you doing? Are you crazy? You know, like.
Well, she probably.
Yeah,
I mean,
of
you probably embarrassed her a little bit, right?
Oh, of course. I mean, because now she's got to explain why I'm not around.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was that thing where you don't really talk about things, until you get older. And you really realize when you should have talked about things.
Right.
But how long were you in jail before you got the actual sentence?
Almost a year.
Oh. So you waited a year in jail before
About
you got
9 months I got what they call a bond reduction. So they dropped my bond from $1 million to $150,000. And in order to get out, you have to pay 10%.
15 grand.
Yeah,
right?
so you had to pay 15 grand to get out. My mom's like, yeah, no. No.
I'll see you in 5.
Yeah. Goodbye.
So
But they supported me all the way through. My mom came, I pled guilty, of course. And
What do
they
you
had
do?
me on tape.
Right.
I was guilty as all.
Oh, they had you on tape. So
I mean, it was a big sting for a long time. So
Right.
they had audio recording. They had me on videotape. Dude was across some other dude's dorm, pointing a camera through the window, and they had me.
whole
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, it was a
Coming
big
in
sting.
big-
I think it was a 2-year investigation.
Oh my goodness.
And like I said, I just got wrapped up in the whole thing. Little mediocre, little slinging nickel bags. I just got wrapped up in the whole thing.
Whoa.
They were
But
getting
it
a
definitely-
haircut too.
Yeah. Definitely changed my life, though.
I mean, had to have. You had no life before 18. I mean, you're
No,
18.
yeah. I mean, I guess I woke up and became a man the day I got arrested.
The day you got
The
arrested.
day I got arrested, because now I'm faced with an institution with grown-ass men that I don't know who the hell they
Grown
are.
ass motherfucker.
Grown-ass, tattooed, crazy. Yeah.
I have so many. So, I mean, like, were you scared, like, oh, I'm going to get raped up in here? Because, when you're a kid, you kind of think that that's what prison life's about.
Yeah, I mean, of course that crossed my mind, because as soon as they think jail, that's like the first thing you think about,
Yeah.
Not once. Never really had any issues with that. Like I said, it's kind of weird.
Not once.
Not once. It's kind of weird when you get when you're in prison, you have a certain job. You almost have like an entitlement to that job. The barber is that entitlement job when you're in prison, because it's one of the few jobs of the prison that I was at that prison actually paid you money.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was the only paid job on the whole facility. So
really?
it was a coveted job for one. Everybody wanted to be the barber because you got money for doing it.
Right.
It was like 18 cents an hour, but
whatever.
you still,
Yeah.
so it was a coveted job, and then it came with a little bit of power, and you knew everybody. And it's the same thing that I was doing when I was in college. I was just doing it in prison. I just wasn't selling weed no more.
Right. So how did you get that coveted job?
In prison, I hate to say it this way, but it's a racial thing. So you have your black barber, you have your white barber, you have your Hispanic barber, you have your Asian barber.
Right.
And I was next in line.
How are you next in line at 18, though?
Well, they kind of knew I cut hair, and I cut a couple, you take a razor blade out of the thing and stick it in the comb and do a little haircut thing. I had done that to a couple guys because they knew I cut hair. And it's a hustle. So it was a way for me, I could get money, I could get things off the commissary, and can buy soap, shampoo, socks, because they don't give you none of that stuff when you're in jail. You have to actually buy that.
Right.
So, yeah, it was hard, I guess, in a way. Being that I was so young, I guess, it was easier to adapt, I guess. Then I didn't have any, okay, well, this is the new situation. I just deal with that now that I'm in that situation.
Right.
Wow. I was sentenced to 10 years, and I did 5 years and 7 months on 10 years and got out on parole.
Good deal, man.
Only stayed on parole for a year.
So once you got the official job, did you get like legit clippers and stuff? You didn't have to do.
You did, but they were chained to the wall.
chained to the wall.
Yeah, so you had your cord that plugged in the wall, and they had like a link chain that was welded onto the like an Andis master,
Right.
Welded onto the housing, and then it was actually chained, bolted into the wall, so you couldn't go with the clipper. Same thing with the scissors; they were all to a chain. And at the end of the day, you had to turn them all in. They'd sign them out. Next morning, you come in, they sign them back out to you. They lock them back up on the wall, and you do your thing for the day.
Wow. What are you gonna do with clippers? Like, I understand why scissors.
You can actually make a tattoo machine with a pair of clippers.
Oh, of course you can. Yeah, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any jailhouse tattoos?
I do on my ankle. I got a dumbass girl's name on my ankle. Yeah.
I don't know if he was saying he was a dumbass for getting the girl's name or if she was a dumbass.
A little of both, actually. Only prison tattoo, and then I actually never really got a lot of tattoos, and the ones I do have are kind of in weird spots, like my ears.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to do my arm. I wanted the full sleeve.
Yeah, me too.
Cool barber, and ride a boosted board, and
Right.
get a Rolex.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
You want to look like Lane?
Yeah. So true.
That's great. So what was it like when that gavel came down, the proverbial gavel, like, goosh, you got 10 years, brother?
That hit me hard because the attorney, which was what they call a public defender, so the court.
You mean a public defender that they call an attorney?
Yeah. So the court appoints you somebody, and then you go, and he represents you, and he's got like 1,000 cases, and they try and run them all through in 5 minutes. And
Right.
I really don't think the judge even knows you other than your name on a piece of paper.
Right. And forgets it 2 seconds later.
Especially if you're in that situation where you're pleading guilty, because like that day, there was like 100 dudes that pled guilty and all went to prison that day.
Right.
That's crazy.
It was like a cattle thing. They just, boop, boop, boop. You got 10 years, you got 5 years, you got 2 years, keep on moving. I literally was in front of the judge for maybe a minute.
So we call that justice.
Yeah. That's what they call justice in the United States.
Whoa. That is stupid, man.
So you signed the paperwork. I signed the deal for 5. So I was going to sign my name saying that I was guilty if you were going to send me to prison for 5 years.
Right.
And then he'd give me 10.
Were you like, mother?
Well, it's something to do with the prosecutor, and he was talking about the big sting and this, that, and the other, and it really had nothing to do with me because I was way down on the totem pole. But he was making the sting.
They always do, right? This guy's the worst guy in the world.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Right. I watch Perry Mason. Aside from the three of us at this table, we don't know. I can't.
Some of your audience might be a little dated by that one.
The Perry Mason, I know. Yeah, like all of them.
Perry Mason?
Who's Perry
Right.
Mason?
Who is Perry Mason?
Only Tony.
Dick. Yeah, I can't imagine either. Like, I can't. I see it from 2 perspectives, right? I see it like if that was me sitting in that chair, and then I know I asked you about your mom. Like, I can't imagine as a parent, like watching your baby, disappear behind the clank clank.
Yeah, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right. No.
Absolutely. I mean, because literally your entire life changes from 1 second to the next.
Right.
So I was in my room doing homework, and a minute later, handcuffed and out the door.
Yeah.
So how did it feel the first day or the first minute walking out?
Walking out? I was going to go walking in, but you didn't go walking out. Like,
walking in, I don't really remember a lot of that.
So when you were in jail, did you get sent to a prison awaiting trial, or were you in a jail?
No, I was in like a county jail, like your local.
Like an 18-month thing?
I was. They held federal prisoners at the time. I was a federal prisoner because it was a federal crime. They held federal prisoners there at that county jail where I was at. And then when I got sentenced, I went to a federal prison, but they sent me all the way to Alabama.
You went to Bama.
I went to Bama to start with.
That's why
I went to Bama first, and then I went to Illinois, and then I came home.
So when you went to Alabama, like, is it what everyone talks about? Like, you go in, they strip search you, they do all that,
all that good stuff.
And is that's like, I mean, that's as a kid, that's like, as everyone, I guess it's just humiliating too, right?
It's 2 things all at once. I think for me, it was demoralizing for one.
Sure.
And you're so fucking scared, you don't know what to do anyway.
Right.
You know, it's a weird feeling. I will say that. And now talking about it, because I don't think I've ever really talked about it, it's a weird feeling. Yeah. Because you don't know 1 second till the next what's going to happen.
And so is it like in the movies or like in television shows that you see, is it that segregated? Like is it?
Yes. It is super segregated. I think I went into prison not knowing what a racist was and came out knowing exactly what a racist was.
Right.
So, I mean, it's very segregated. Like I said, even to the prison point of, if you were black, you went to a black barber. If you were Asian, you went to an Asian barber. If you were white, you went to a white barber. And the white barber kit that you cut hair on the white man can't go to the Asian man. Like,
really?
It was that hardcore.
Did you make any mistakes? Like, make any racial mistakes? I don't know. Like crossing lines that you're like, oh, wait a second, there's a line here? I didn't know that.
No, it was really in unique situation, like I said, with the barber thing, because it would be in that coveted job or the more important job. So no, me myself no, but I definitely seen.
I mean, early
things
on,
go
you
down.
weren't
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, yeah.
Oh, I mean,
I can't be friends with him, or I can't be friends with him.
to some extent, yes. And then like,
And are those mistakes that everybody makes?
maybe, I don't know. That's gonna
Yeah.
be an individual thing, I imagine.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, I worked next to a black guy for a long time, but we talk all day long in the barbershop. But when we would go out in the yard, you wouldn't even talk to each other.
Right.
No eye contact.
No eye
nothing.
contact. No, you can't be seen talking to. It's sad in a way.
So weird, right?
Yeah, it's super weird. And like I said, like you go from one thing one day, I'm sitting in my dorm room to the next hour, I'm in county jail
Right.
in an orange jumpsuit.
Right.
So when they were
It's a very strange feeling.
walking you down in the Fed prison, like in the movies, were they yelling stuff at you as you're walking down, carrying your mattress, carrying your?
Actually, when I got there late at night, so everybody was already like
in the racks.
Yeah, everybody's already asleep, and they put me in like this holding cell thing till the next morning. So
Oh, you got lucky.
yeah. God, I remember all that now.
Right.
Y'all
Yep.
actually having this conversation, I remember all that.
And you have to carry all that shit in with you and stuff.
When you go, you actually take nothing with you.
Right.
And then like before I went to prison, like all my stuff that like when I went to jail that day, they took my watch and my ring and my shoes and my shoelaces, and they take all that. But before you go to prison, you either donate it or you send it home because you can't take it with you.
Right.
So they give you prison gear and all that good stuff.
All that stuff.
All that good stuff.
And then is there, like you said, you had to buy everything. So do you get a first run of like, here's your soap, and then the
yeah, they
next
give
run?
you like 3 pair of pants, 3 shirts, 2 pair of underwear, 2 pair of socks. So if you want any more than that,
You gotta buy
you
it.
got to buy it yourself.
And was it expensive? Like how much was like a
No,
pair
I
of
mean-
socks?
$2.
$2, and then
But $2 in prison is like $200 on the outside.
Right.
Like that's hard. You got to really.
and could your mom or could your family members like
They
add
had to
money
make
to
you
the
money, but it's a
commissary?
process. So they couldn't bring you money. Like if she came to see me,
Right.
she couldn't bring me actual cash money. She had to bring like a money order and put it in this little thing, and then it had to go in your account. And you had to wait for it to come on, and then you could go to the commissary with your little card. And
Right.
So it was a
Big process.
yeah. It's definitely something that I'll always remember. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Yeah,
so
no doubt.
so
So did you bunk with a newbie, or did you, or they put you?
I
with
was in
like
a
big.
big.
Bubba?
There was no like bunk. Like we didn't have like individual cells. It was like one big room with there were 88 people in each pod. So
that must
there
have
were-
been, I would think that would be scarier than being in a cell, because at least in a cell you get at least a little relief.
you got a little bit of closure or somewhere you can get away, and that is
Right.
it's a little bit weird because you are in one big room with 88 other people and never had been like that ever. Had been to summer camp
and,
or shit
and
like
88
that,
like murderers or 88 like real motherfuckers.
Everything from rapists to child molesters to everything.
Was there like one guy that kind of ran everything?
His name is Kurtis.
No, hell no. Yeah, there was, there's in each racial quarter, I guess you'd say.
So it was
There's
all
a-
white dudes in this pod?
In my pod, no, but very segregated. You sat together, you ate together, played basketball together, you did everything together.
God, that would
One stayed on one side of the room, the other one stayed on the other side of the room. You don't mingle.
And somebody made that up like 50 years ago, and it's still
Or,
today.
or even more longer than that. It's just,
Yeah.
it's dumb, it's stupid.
That's so crazy.
I know, I personally know somebody who's lost their life over something like that. So of
Over
course,
something dumb, just like that.
some stupid racist bullshit.
Right.
It's funny how like as a society, everything, even technology, everything evolves except for like the prison system, and, like certain systems.
Oh, we don't. That would be a whole nother podcast. You want to go down prison reform with me? That's a whole nother podcast all by itself.
It's funny how some things they don't believe in reforming or changing.
Nothing. So,
No.
I mean, I get the whole punishment thing, and I've always said this, and you probably heard me say this too, Tony. Is in America, if we did certain things like certain countries do, if you steal something, I'm gonna chop your damn hand off. We wouldn't have that problem anymore. You know?
It's true. It's true. I like my fingers.
Yeah, exactly.
I was in Saudi, right? And I was in this. First off, jewelry stores in Saudi Arabia are totally different. It's not like a couple pieces of gold under the glass, right?
No,
it's like
yeah.
the walls are covered. Like I don't even know how you distinguish each piece because it looks like Mr. T's chest, right? There's so much gold on the wall that you can't even like figure it out. And there was this watch sitting on a countertop. Did you hear me? Sitting on a countertop is a Rado watch, right? And I'm looking at it, and it's like hip hop star, right? It's like diamonds, and between each bezel, the diamond bezel between each link, there's
Oh, a Jay
diamonds.
Mazur's watch.
It was exactly. It was totally crazy. So I take the watch and I flip it over, and there's 1.2 million Royales, and at the time that was like $250,000 just sitting on the countertop, right, in Saudi Arabia. I go, I could run out this door, and they couldn't do anything about it. And then I realized, you need a hand for your wristwatch to fit, because if you don't have a hand, your wristwatch is going to keep slipping off like that. So it was definitely a deterrent. Well, I wasn't going to steal it. Let me be clear.
Of course, yes.
But it's just weird how culturally it's so much different. You know what I mean? Like they didn't care that it was. Nobody's going to steal that.
Nobody's going to touch that.
No. I did.
Here,
I was like,
you can't sit your bottle cap down. Somebody don't walk by and going to get it.
Exactly. That's crazy.
Yeah, even like what. Was it Singapore or
Singapore, right?
yeah?
Singapore,
With a dude with
chewing gum.
with the cane, they cane that
Yeah,
kid.
they cane that
How
kid.
clean that city is because nobody's chewing gum and spitting it out or littering because nobody. Yeah, you want the rear spank with that big old cane. You know
No
what I mean?
sir. No
So-
sir.
I damn sure don't.
I will properly discard it.
Exactly. Recycle? Trash.
Right.
Yep.
I'd be worried right now I'm worried about what recycle is. You go to like recycle, you're like, which one's recycle? Is paper recycle? Is
But driving up here and like we're talking about, you see trash bags on the side of the road, and it's just like here's waste. It's somebody else's problem.
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of cities in America have come that way now.
Yeah.
It's somebody else's
I
problem.
think we're so fortunate because we all live in DC, and like DC is just such a clean city. You don't even realize how clean it is till you're outside of the city. Really,
Exactly.
Right? You know what I mean?
Definitely noticed that.
You go to New York, you're like, what the hell is
hell?
going on? You come to Philly, you're like, what in the world is going on here?
I really, I had never been to Philly until last year when I came for a premiere last year, and I was like, God, this city's dirty as shit.
Tony and I were talking about this last night. There's so many homeless people right around the convention center. Now, granted, like it's covered, so it's a place for people to sleep and stuff. But we were talking about like almost nobody panhandles. Like you see lots of homeless, but they're not panhandling. Like in D.C., like everybody's panhandling, right? Like keep your hand on your wallet. But I never got that sense. I mean, it's actually. As we were walking, it was more from a place of empathy, watching like what their life was, as opposed to like in DC where you're kind of like, get away from me, like because they're in your face panhandling. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, I don't know how we got sidebarred on that,
Who knows?
But you had a home in prison.
I had a home in prison for 5 years,
Got
and I
tattoo
did get
on your
out
ankle,
finally.
Mom.
Yeah, got a tattoo, mom on my ankle.
That's
Crazy.
right.
So, what was the day like coming out?
It's a lead up because you find you know what day you're going home, so you're counting on days down. I got 100 days.
So,
left. I
out
got
of the 10
50
years,
days.
you knew that what day?
When you go in, you go through a series of things. You talk to counselors and this, that, and the other, and they give you a social worker or a caseworker kind of thing. And then they give you what they call your out date or your parole date, this, that, and the other. So I had a parole date. I missed the first one. They didn't give me a parole the first time. And then I went to the second time. They granted me parole, and I got to leave. But I had to wait 48 hours because they had to verify my address before they would let me go.
So they gave you parole, and then you had 48 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And that's actually probably the most dangerous time when you're in prison.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, it's
You
probably
don't
the
tell
most-
anybody, right? You're like, oh,
Yo,
I didn't
hell
make it.
no.
I didn't make it again, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's ever made parole on the yard.
No. And then you're always going, like, I'm just going to the jail hall. Yes, going home. But you just don't tell nobody that. Hey,
What's that? Because if anybody has like vendetta or something?
or that, I mean, I never really understood that whole thing, or out of a respect thing for the man that you've been next to for the last 5 years, it's going to be there for the rest of his life.
Right. That makes sense. You don't tell your cellie or nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. How many
Your
cellies?
date's like your dates to yourself. You don't tell your date to anybody.
Wow. Another one of those weird prison things. Isn't it?
Or weird prison things.
But how like have you been so excited for something you can't wait? And
Oh,
you're
dude,
so
the
anxious?
anticipation. You cannot wait.
You're like, that motherfucker's
literally-
smiling too much.
I
He got a
literally
date.
counted the days. I took a little piece of paper and I made a little calendar, and I literally counted the days of the last 6 months every night before I went to bed.
Hold on. I'm confused now. So was you said you had 48 hours? So what were you marking off for 6 months?
So
your parole
you know
hearing?
what day you're going to the parole hearing.
Right. So
So
you're
you
marking
know
that
what
day
day.
off.
You know what day, but you don't know what your fate is. So you can go
Right.
home that day, or you not go home that day.
Right.
So you count me because you got a 50-50 chance. So of course I'm We're very anxious, you know. I'm thinking that whole anticipation leading up, the anxiety of that is just intense.
You're like, man, why are you so happy, man? Why are you so happy all of a sudden?
That going home thing is amazing. Then I got home. My brother picked me up from. They flew me. I was in Illinois. They flew me from Illinois back to Charlotte.
So how'd you get from Alabama to
From
Illinois?
Alabama to Illinois, Con Air.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah,
Like you and Dave Chappelle
me and Dave Chappelle
on Con Air.
and Nick Cage.
Nick Cage, that's right.
What's crazy is he's talking about his brother picking him up, right? So when he left, his brother was 14 years old.
Yeah.
So he was riding bike in middle school.
My brother picked me up on my Harley Davidson. Yeah. They flew me to Charlotte, and then they give me $100. So the day that I got out, I did that 48-hour thing, and then they verified my address because I was going back to my mother's house. And they verified my address. They come pop the thing, and I could walk out the door. They give me $100 and a plane ticket. The plane ticket took me back to where I was arrested,
Which is North Carolina.
Charlotte.
Wow.
So I got to Charlotte, and I did it from Charlotte to Charleston on my own. So my mom, Western Union, me money to get on the bus, and I literally had nothing when I got on the bus. No change. Like, she bought the ticket. I had no ID, nothing. I had to show like prison paperwork to get on the bus to verify who I was because I had nothing.
Right,
They
of course
took
not.
everything away from you.
Whoa. That's crazy.
That is insane.
Yeah,
What
that's
year did you go
intense.
in?
Shit. What year was that?
I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't your celly.
It was in the 80s. We'll
was in
put
the
it that
80s?
way. Yeah. It was in the 80s.
I kind of wanted a timeline because I want to ask the question, like, what was the biggest thing in like life or in world that you're like, that was a real big change over those 5 years?
Cell phone.
So the cell phones came in and like
Well,
it readily
it was-
available?
It wasn't a readily available thing. They were just kind of coming on the bag phone was coming around about that time. So that kind of puts it around that. And pagers. Pagers were huge back then.
Right.
Because, I mean, sold drugs. I had a pager, of course.
Right.
But pagers, and then, of course, that whole era, we went to the huge bag phone and worked our way up that way. So, like, when I got out of prison, right at that time, I got the bag phones were huge. Because everybody, if you were anybody, had a bag phone then.
Remember those old bags?
Yeah, they were fucking, they were
terrible.
huge. It was like the size of a Samsonite suitcase.
Think about the radiation your body was taking
Oh my
from those
God, can you
phones.
imagine?
But, hey, that motherfucker's glowing.
Maybe that's what happened to cheeseburger.
Jeez. That's crazy. So that was a while ago then. I mean,
Yes, that was
I
a
mean,
very, very, very long time ago.
You must be
And,
like 88 years old or something. Old
some
motherfucker.
people say that. Some people say I was Jesus' barber back in the day.
That's crazy.
Or Adam's barber, however
Adams,
you want to look at it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you get back to, like you said, you got back to Charlotte, but you knew.
I knew that leading up to that getting out day, you're either going to go or you're not going to go. So what's my plan? What am I going to do? And, of course, talking to my mother and everything else. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to cosmetology school. Because back then it wasn't cool to be a barber. You know, like in the 80s, like it was just the old dude that shook in the corner and like nobody went to him, you know, like, or he was
It was like
sleeping.
$7 haircuts,
Yeah,
right?
it was not even. It was like $3 back then,
Right.
you know. So, or he was sleeping and you didn't want to mess with him.
Right.
You never wake up a sleeping barber.
That's your next tattoo.
Yes. So I went to cosmetology school, and of course it was the girls thing too. Man, I
Yeah,
spent
right.
5 years in prison.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I literally, because my brother picked me up from the bus station, and I was on the back of the bike, and we drove directly to the cosmetology school.
No, you didn't.
Yes, we did.
You didn't go see mom or nothing?
No, I went directly to the cosmetology
Mom must have
school.
been pissed at you.
No, because I had already told her. Because I told her, I'm going to go do this first because I've got a bad feeling just about myself and knowing how I am. If I do any kind of deviation from my plan,
Right.
it's never going to happen.
Well, I have mad respect for you. 1, 2, I can't imagine, and I got to be like sensitive when I say this, but like you went from like the world's most masculine institutionalized thing into cosmetology, school, which is like, not the world's most masculine. kind
No,
of
not
thing.
at all.
So how? I mean, I can't even.
Well,
imagine
the
what
school
that
I went
adjustment-
to wasn't, of course we had the, one very special guy there,
Right.
but, and for me, it never really, I came across that later on in my career. It never was like at the beginning.
At the beginning.
Yeah, at the beginning in school, no, I never had a problem in school with like any kind of issues like that. Or anything.
What what kind of like post prison like PTS did you have? Just about like readjusting into society and be like, Like in prison, you're like, why is it dude looking at me or something like that?
I hate to say it, but everything is brighter. Everything smells different.
Yeah.
When you're cooped up in a room and you only go outside 1 hour a day for 5 years, and you walk outside, now you're outside, you're in the rain. I hadn't been in the rain for 5 years.
Whoa.
Rain hadn't touched my skin for 5 years.
Wow.
So it was different. I mean, I sat in the rain and cried one night.
Are you serious?
Oh, of course. I mean, there's things you miss, man. You're told from the time you get up in the morning till the time you go to bed at night exactly what to do, when to do it, how to do it.
Wow.
And then they kick you out the door. And some guys do it for 20, 25 years, and then they kick them out of the door.
I can't even.
So, I mean, that's why a lot of guys get institutionalized. They get out. They try their hardest to stay out, but it's easier to go back.
Right. It's crazy.
It's super easy. I know a lot of them like that.
Oh, I can't
That's
imagine.
crazy. Were you ever scared that you were going back?
No. Nah. I mean, of course, we've all done dumb shit.
Right.
You know, I got pulled for DUI after that. You know, like scared me because I was like, fuck, I'm going back to prison now. What the fuck?
Right.
You know, but no, I mean, it never really bothered me because I had a whole different track about what I was focused on at that time. And it was like, I was 18. I didn't have a track back then.
Right.
It was just kind of whatever happened. But that growing up, that first day, I guess, going to prison, I was like, all right, I got to focus. I'm going to go, and this is what I'm going to do.
And you kept
I've
that
always
focus.
been that way. And whatever I do, I go fucking 1,100 miles an hour
For
at it.
good or
Whatever.
bad,
Yeah,
right,
dude.
exactly.
Straight at it, right at the mountain. Boom. This is the way I've always been. To my downfall of some things, too.
Of course.
Of course.
You know? Wow.
Yeah, good for you, brother.
So I did the cosmetology thing, and I went to a really cool cosmetology school. That was a pivot point school.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, I went to a really cool pivot point school, and my mom had taught there on and off when I was a kid. So I knew the owner. The owner knew me. He kind of knew my history. He knew, I'd been in prison and everything. So
do you think if he didn't know your mom or something, you think he would have taken you in the school? Or do you think it would have?
no, he could. I mean, he couldn't refuse me from coming to school because it wasn't back then. Like now, they ask you if you have a criminal record when you go to get your cosmetology license, but back then they didn't. So
I think Maryland does. Maryland always has.
Really? South
Yeah.
Carolina never did, and they started 10 years ago or so, I guess.
Right.
But I mean, a lot of there's a lot of things back then that are different than they are now. It's way different. So I get that. I understand that to some point.
Right.
Why, I mean, I guess, would they reject you?
I mean, he could and he couldn't. And I mean, if I found out that, I could sue him or something. I guess I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So, but I knew her because she, did it. My mom worked for Redken for a long time. My mom was a hairstylist. It was Jerry Redding. I'm
Jerry
really
Redding.
dating myself now. Because if any of the audience is listening, you know the whole Jerry Redkin thing.
Yeah. Right.
That is funny.
That's crazy.
So I got out, went to cosmetology school, and did my whole thing, and sucked at cutting hair. Absolutely sucked at it.
But you were a barber. You had 5 years experience.
Guy hair.
Right. So you were working inside shapes, not outside shapes,
Right.
essentially.
Yeah,
Right?
I was a fader. I wasn't a hair cutter back then. Like I knew how to fade. That was all. When I went to prison, I did a mean fade. That's I still do a mean fade. Got 99 problems, but a fade ain't one.
Now that's a shirt, brother. That's a shirt. That's crazy. So what was that adjustment like? I mean, you had to change how you saw hair and everything, right?
Well, I didn't know anything about hair because I had any really formal training, just from watching mom do or whatever,
Right.
like hanging out with a couple dudes, in the garage, and you figure it out.
Right.
I think as dudes, we've all cut our own hair at least once. You fuck it up really bad, or you do really good. If you do really good, then you think you're a barber.
Right. If you do really good, you cut someone else's hair.
Exactly. That's kind of how it happened with me.
That's hilarious. So what about how'd you perm and how'd you foil and all that?
Absolutely sucked at that too, and did not understand the whole theory and law of color. I was completely lost. It sounded like Charlie Brown when that lady was talking. Oh yeah, totally. But then something clicked one day. I don't know what. I can't explain it. I was in haircutting class, and I was like, oh, I fucking get it.
I get it.
Yeah, I get that, but all the other shit I still don't get, but I get that.
Right.
So if I get that, then I'm going to focus on the get that. and fuck all that other shit. We're just gonna focus in on that. So I ended up going to work for Redken because my mom worked for Redken, but back in the show circuit thing. So it was, you know, basically the show bitch. You know, come, you did the trash and you shampooed fucking 1,000 people on the weekend. You know, it's kind of how I started with the whole hair show thing, 18 million years ago.
So right after hair school,
right after hair school, yeah.
Stuff?
Well, I worked at a salon. The first salon was like absolutely crazy, insane, and went to work one day, and like the lady had closed up in the middle of the night and took all our shit with her, and that was my first shop that I worked at. Yeah,
son of a gun.
Yeah.
That must have been. It must have been like, to backtrack a little bit. It just crossed my. It must have been so weird, like being in hair school and then thinking like, yeah, a year ago, man. I was clanking.
Yes, totally.
Right.
Well, because I literally had been out of prison less than 24 hours, and I'm now standing in a room with 66 hot ass chicks.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So I'm just total shell shock.
Oh, dude, I can't even.
Total shell shock, bro.
Oh my gosh.
Were a lot of people afraid of you?
No, I mean, I never really, that was, the day that I walked out was kind of, okay, I'm going to shut that door. I'm just not going to talk about it anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, unless I come into a situation where I had to talk about it. And I never really
like this
got
podcast.
Yeah. I actually probably haven't talked about it my entire life until right now. But back then you didn't talk about shit like that.
Right.
You know, and like, I've gotten fired from a couple jobs for not telling them that I've been in prison. Yeah, I won't say any names, but a very large company let me go because I lied on my application. It asked me if I had been convicted of a felony, and I said no.
So when you were marking no, though, like, were your hands shaking? Like, you knew you were lying, and like,
yeah, but I mean, at that time you didn't want it because you knew if you put yes, they weren't going to fucking hire you anyway.
Right. I mean, you had nothing to lose, really.
Yeah.
You're either going to get fired or you're not going to get the job.
Yeah,
so maybe they don't find out.
Yeah, it's like, fuck it, let's do it. It was kind of weird. It's kind of one of the reasons my mom actually said this to me when I was in prison. She goes, well, they won't, you know, I've been a salon owner my whole life, and I've never checked anybody's criminal background. Like, don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Right. So that kind of what's one of the reasons that steered me toward that, too.
Your mom threw you under the bus.
Go ahead, away. Doesn't every mother?
Right.
But to work for, you know, I worked in a shop, and I did all that for a while, and met a girl, got married, we moved to Florida, and I come across this absolutely wonderful thing called Tony and Guy.
Yeah. So many of you barbers started out with Tony and Guy, right?
Man, I was something about Tony and Guy, I don't know. For me, it was...
And was this like 95, 96, 97, those times?
96, 97. Bedhead had just launched.
Oh, right. That's when we were with...
Yeah, so Bedhead had just launched. It was like Self-Absorbed and Control Freak. And the Bedhead Stick. And there was like 3 products in the Bedhead line. That was it. And one salon in Dallas because Tony and Guy being split. Right. But that was my thing with them was, okay, they were the only ones at the time you either cut or you color. You didn't have to do both. And I didn't have to do nails and skin and everything to be jack of all my trades. Like, I was completely lost with that. I got to focus in on one thing, and that's what Tony and Guy did. If I wanted to cut, I cut. And if I wanted to color, I colored. Right. So that I needed structure in my life. I'd been in prison for 5 years. Still need some kind of structure, you know. So I did the Tony and Guy thing. I went to work for Tony and Guy in Orlando.
In Orlando.
So you're not quite a barber yet. You're still
I'm still Cosmo.
Yep.
Still full on Cosmo. Wow. Still doing women's hair. It was, you know, at the time I believe it was like art director level 1 or something like that. I moved through the ranks real quick. And then I went to London for a little while. It's actually how I met Kevin.
Kevin Luckman.
Yeah, my buddy Kev.
Kevo. Wow.
So Tony and Guy, like, they gave me that structure, and it was a family, and we kind of did our own thing, and we just kind of said, fuck the world, everybody else. You know, we did our own world releases and everything. I was totally into all that. And I was like, cool. It was weird.
It was rock and roll is what it was.
Yeah, of course it was, you know, like, and then too, the more I think about it, we wore all white. Kind of like being in prison. So I felt at home.
He is institutionalized.
Yes, totally.
He just doesn't know it yet.
Right. But I worked for Tony and Guy for a long time. My core, I bled Tony and Guy bedhead for probably the first third of my career, I guess.
Yeah, right.
And then always was that men's hair cutter, so I always had a guy clientele, right? Because I did have a mean fade, or at least I thought I did. Right. I still think I do.
Well, were they fading then? I mean,
No,
it was
I
more
mean,
kinda
you
like
had I had
pushing out and
military
stuff, right?
guys, you know, like
Right,
what
right.
Tony and Guy was just shredding hair back then. We were
Yeah.
just shredding the shit out of it, razor cutting everything.
Everything on
was,
end.
Yeah, everything was square layers, and we were just smashing it into.
Wow. And then, so how'd you get into the barbering track? It wasn't supposed to be a trick question,
Well,
Kurt.
because there's a lot that goes before the barbering.
Yeah,
thing.
go ahead then. Yeah.
So after Tony and Guy, I started competing and doing hairstyling competitions. And in this hairstyling competition part of it, Tony and Guy started to have a little problem with me competing. Because we were our own thing. And if you were going to do that, you're going to go do that. If not, you're going to stay here and you're going to do Tony and Guy. And I was still like, like, fuck you. You ain't going to tell me what to do.
Right.
So I bounced and I left and did my own thing. It didn't work out and I went back. So I did competitions for a long time, and I thought that's where I wanted to be a world champion. I trained with a whole bunch of world champions: Joaquin Roos, Manuel Rodriguez, Michael De La Pena. Did the men's. I started out men's, and then I transferred over into ladies because it was more. The men's in that world is always the same thing over and over and over. It's very repetitive, just like a regular barber. I didn't want to do that. I wanted something fresh every time.
Right.
Traveled all over the world doing that. Got into training and like teaching other people how to do that. Because, like I said, I've always been that one to do go at anything for 100 miles an hour. So when I got into the whole competition thing, I would train for 4, 5, 6 hours at a time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's what you do. It's OMC is the Organization of Mondial Coiffure. So at that level of competition, it's something you have. I mean, you're doing an 18-minute blow dry from soaking wet hair. You gotta know like point A to point B to point C to point D, and you can't be bouncing around. You're wasting time. So it's a system. By the time you work your way around the entire chair, you're done.
You know what's amazing to this is that, certainly our relationship, or we met you've always been the behind the scenes guy.
Yes.
And like until this moment, and I don't mean this in any disrespect at all, but until this moment, I didn't realize how deep and how thick your foundation is. Right? Like I never
never really. Everybody says that to me. I've never really thought that myself.
But you've done a lot of stuff.
I have, man.
And you've done it at the highest levels.
Well, that's because me doing everything 1,000 miles an hour. Like I'm going for it. Right. I did when I was Tony Guy. I mean, it was like the fastest one for the United States. I was like the fastest one to get art director. It was like, you give me a goal, I'm going to blow it out of the water.
Whoa.
So it's just one of those things. This is the person I am.
That's great.
Which drew me into being the competition thing. I left and I went to work for Pivot Point. And
in Chicago?
In Chicago. Well, I worked for Pivot Point, but I didn't live in Chicago.
Was Gordon there?
Yeah.
At Pivot Point?
Oh, yeah. Gordon was there still. Leo was still alive. Leo kind of took me under his wing. Leo Passage, the founder and creator of Pivot Point. He saw, something in me, and he's like, Curtis, we got to do something with you. If not, I'm thinking, he was one of the only people at the time that I had told that I had been to prison in the industry.
Right.
Like no bosses, other than the one person that fired me that knew. Leo Passage was the only man at that time knew that I had been in prison.
Wow.
And had no problem with it. None. Didn't give a fuck.
Well, at that point, how long had you been out?
Oh.
10 years or something?
Yeah, a decade at least.
Yeah, so a decade. Come on. You ain't going back.
No. At that point, no. Not at all.
What's cool is that you just, so a lot of people want to test the waters or see how it goes, but you just jump in 2 feet in.
4 feet in.
It's like, boom.
When they say all in, I'm all in.
Wow.
Which kind of led to me where I am now. I did the Pivot Point thing. I was overseas, and my mom had already passed. And then my dad passed while I was living in China. And then come home. Well, I was told that he passed. And I come home to find out that he didn't pass. They had revived him. But nobody called me and told me.
Story?
Yes. I've got some I tell you this, it's the South Carolinian thing. Like, we got some fucking weird stories.
He comes all the way back from China for his funeral, and there's
and my
sitting at
dad
dinner.
said yes. They failed to call me and tell me because of the time change.
Right.
And my brother, he's still to this day, my brother, the same thing. He's like, I fucking forgot to call you.
Can you imagine going back for your dad's
dude, I was
funeral?
fucking wrecked.
Right.
And your dad's
Absolutely
sitting
wrecked.
at
My
dinner.
dad was still alive, yeah. My way. But he ended up passing. But he's in a better place now, much better. He had a heart attack one week, and he had a stroke the following week after I was home.
Right.
So I was home when he did pass.
That's
so
when your brother
good.
became your stepbrother, right?
Yes. So I was home when he passed, so that was good.
Oh my gosh.
But in that, this is fairly recently, so we're thinking, what was that? I was like, when did he pass away? 2011.
Right.
So 2011, I'm back home.
Still in cause?
Yeah, I wasn't working in a shop because I had been teaching. So I've been teaching 5 years overseas, so I wasn't working in a shop. I went to try and work in a shop. This wasn't my thing anymore.
What was it?
They're like working in a shop. Like working, like grinding out, doing like, foils all day. Like that's
right.
just not, like I worked
like
for Tony and Guy.
Yeah,
I'm not fucking doing that. I'm just not. No, I'm not doing that. So I can't. So I made some really good money in China, so I didn't have to really work when I got back for a little while.
Right.
Of course. And one day I was on YouTube and I found this guy called the Bloody Butcher.
No.
And he was fucking cool.
The Bloody Butcher got you into barbering?
And not really barbering, but.
Right.
I found it was the first time I seen him, and it was one of the first videos they had ever put on YouTube, and Scorum had just started.
Right.
I'm like, they're fucking cool.
Yeah, I felt the same exact way.
Yeah, they're fucking cool. I could do something like that.
Yeah.
But then we're always that like, oh yeah, they're fucking cool, but nah.
Well, at that point, you're like, that's the coolest barbershop in the world.
Oh, yeah,
and barbershops
totally.
just, they just, it's just like it hasn't spread yet,
Yeah,
right?
no, not at all. I mean, it was
right?
so, and like I didn't even know the whole story. I just seen like, cool Rob on YouTube,
right.
And then I started digging around a little bit and found a couple more things, and I found out they got a Facebook. And I'm going down all the Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really like this, but it sparked an interest in me because nobody had ever really taught me how to do a pompadour. Nobody ever really taught me how to do a side part.
No,
these are classic foundations of the barbering industry. And I spent 15 years in the industry, never learned none of that shit. So it was different. It was I sought after that because it was more. I was really education based, coming from that Tony and Guy world, coming from the Pivot Point world. We were super just ground in education. That's what I was searching for. I was like, okay,
right.
well, what's my next thing? That's fucking cool. I think I can do that.
Right.
So I started, called, and actually it was funny. I sent, I think, a Facebook message to the Facebook Messenger or whatever, and on the other end actually was Lawrence Haggerty, but I didn't know who it was on the other end at the time, which was a startup Reuzel.
Right.
Got to talking, and he sent me a couple products, and I'm like, oh, cool, this is badass.
Right.
I get the products. No, of course, nobody can see, but I have no fucking hair. I'm a hair product junkie, but I'm no fucking hair.
Like Rob.
Oh, yeah, of course. So I got the product, I played around with them, and then I kind of run out of money, and I had to figure out something, start doing some work or whatever. So go down to the barbershop. Think I can do this.
Right.
So I moseyed on down to the barbershop. Guy goes, can you cut hair? I said, yeah, I can cut hair. He sent me down and cut hair, and it was like this 90-year-old man, the flabbiest skin you ever want. He wanted me like straight razor shave and like 4 all around. And I'm like, I can do this. And I did it, and the guy like, holy shit, you do know what you're doing. So I went to work at a little tiny little bullshit barbershop. It was just me and an old dude. We sat in and I just picked his brain. I got a whole different aspect of like them old school barbers like that. They're just wise in everything they do and everything they say. I don't know. I don't understand the whole thing. When you're like 90 and you've been a barber for 99 years, like you know shit,
Right. That's so cool. It's very cool to me that Rob kind of got him interested in barbering, right?
In a way, because I kind of in that way, like it sparked my interest. It brought barbering back to the forefront for me. I mean, it was always there.
Right.
Yeah, it was always there.
Right.
I mean, yeah, just barber, okay, yeah, barber, whatever. But it brought it. Man, it was cool then to be like. I think Rob and Lean at that point were just starting that. They didn't set out to start the whole thing, but that movement was starting over. It is cool to be a fucking barber.
It is cool to be a barber. That's really cool. It's interesting to me too. Like in the Reuzel team, you have Kurtis, you have Cheeseburger. I love that. Anyone in Cheeseburger?
Got stash and the cheese.
You got the stash and the cheese, and you got cheese in the stash. So you got you guys, you got Rob, and you got Lane, and all you guys have a TG background.
Every one of us. Rob's a bit assassin.
Oh, was Rob? I thought he was TG.
Rob. Well, Cheeseburger's Tony and Guy. I'm Tony and Guy.
Right, and was Lane?
Rob, I'm not sure about Lane. I think he was with Assassin as well. But I know Rob's and Trevor Sorbet.
Right.
Jeez, he loves Trevor Sorbet.
We all
We
love
all love Trevor Sorbet. Who doesn't love Trevor Sorbet?
Exactly. If not, learn your history.
Yes.
You know.
So I followed him on Facebook for a little while, and Facebook had just started. So I'd actually got my first Facebook account when I moved to China. Because when I moved to China, MySpace was like shit.
Right.
Well, when I moved to China, they blocked MySpace. You know, and they
No
were like,
space for you?
Yeah, and they were redacting YouTube. So they were like, you go on YouTube and be like shit blacked out. Because they were most of them, like where I was in China at the school, they had like one central, and then they served the internet up to everybody from them. So they had full control over the whole system. So if they didn't want you to see it, you didn't see it. It's a communist country, so.
Right. So what? So you went pretty much right. I mean, you've only kind of worked for Reuzel since you started your.
They were not Reuzel at that point. It was still Scorum at that time. Like the point, it was just making that cross. Like the products were just starting to happen,
right?
And I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I heard they were coming to the U.S.
You're like, what?
What? I'm gonna go see these motherfuckers. So I went to L.A. and saw them.
Like just saw like their sideshow thing that they were doing?
They were. That was the first time they come to the States. They did. I think it was Tequila Sunrise, like the tour thing or whatever they called it. It was somewhere in California. I don't remember now. I've been so many damn places. And I went, didn't talk to them. Just watched them on stage. Was fucking amazed at Rob. How you can be so fucking crazy and still get everything out you need to say. It's great.
And then some.
And then some. I don't get it. And I went back to my hotel that night. I don't remember. I seen something on Facebook. They were going like somewhere the next day. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I got nothing to do tomorrow. So I went to the next place.
You followed them around like the dead?
Well, the first two, and then the next stop was Denver, Colorado on 420.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Back to that, are we?
Yes. Back to the 420 thing. And I talked to Lawrence at that show, and Lawrence said, we might have an education team come up. I know you're really big in education. You work for Pivot Point and all that. He said, I'd love to have you on board.
Right.
But we're not there yet. I'm like, all right, cool. Just let me know. That was a long time. But they did get to that point, and I had actually already started kind of working with Rob and Lean a little bit before I was actually a Scumbassador. Mm-hmm. Because the shop I was working at the time, part of being an educator, a lot of people know this too, is that when you work for a in particular brand, wherever the shop that you work, you need to carry that brand, all that good stuff. Well, the guy wasn't willing to bring on any product.
Any product.
It was an 89-year-old man. The only product he had in the whole place was baby powder. That was the only, and he'd give it to you. He wouldn't even retail it to you. And I think it was like 100 years old sitting on the shelf.
Right.
So he didn't get
was
the
it,
whole
Was it
retail.
the green bottle?
Yeah.
The green the
old
baby powder.
Asajj rub or whatever the hell
Right.
it was called back in the day.
That shit smells good, though. Oh, come on. Don't make that face, man. I'm the only one.
Yes.
I'm the only one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Fair enough.
So he wouldn't do the whole retail thing, so I couldn't commit to being an educator with them at the time because, it's technicality. I got into a situation where I went and talked to a lady. She was willing to bring me on, but I told her part of the deal of bringing me on, she had to bring Reuzel along with them. And that just kind of was setting me up to,
For your
try and do what I wanted to do. Or I didn't even know what I wanted to do at that time. I was hanging out. It was fun. It was cool.
Right.
Smoke, street dudes talking. Like it wasn't. There's certain parts of this industry for me being that, like it's a little stuffy, like the whole corporate side I hate.
Right.
Like sales side, I don't get it. The whole money thing, like, there's certain parts of this industry is like never really dealt with it before, So I was like, all right, I'll wait. We'll do this. Nothing but a thing. So I waited a little while, and then Lawrence sent me a message or something. He goes, we got to submit a video. You got to do a 5-minute video. Don't make it look like a music video, and send it in by a certain date. I'm like, all right. Well, I literally went down to the wire on that one. I made the video on Thursday. It was due Friday morning.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Turn the video in, and I get a little email a month or so later that I got accepted and was going off to Chicago for my training.
Whoa.
So
Who did the training?
Oh, Robin Lean. Well, Robin Lean do like the first day of the train, and then it was George and Becca
Got
for
it.
the rest of it. And I got on the Scumbassador thing, but then the job that I now do at Reuzel, I did at Tony and Guy.
Well, tell the listeners what you do
I'm
at Reuzel.
model event coordinator. So anytime Robin Lean or our Scumbassador are our educators, is what we call them. Anytime we come to a show like Premiere Philly here, I organize all the models that they're going to use on stage. So that's all the prior work that's done, the behind the scenes guy that you don't see. Everybody gets to see these beautiful models walking down. Well, where did she come from?
Right.
You know, that's what I do. I get out and slump and find them people.
So if you know, if Reuzel's coming to your town and you want a badass haircut, you got to get in touch with Curtis,
yes.
right?
I would prefer you to, yes. I would very much so. And I can guarantee to make that happen if you got a great head of hair.
There you go. I'm no good to him.
Me either. But you got a great beard, though, Corey.
Thanks, Kurt. I appreciate that. Dude, what a very, very cool story.
What a ride.
Sometimes, sometimes I think, like, what the fuck?
Right.
Sometimes I'm like, why am I not dead at this point?
Right. That means you've lived a good life if you're saying, why am I not dead?
Yeah. Well, the first couple years with Reuzel was a little rough.
That's cool. You know, again, Curtis has been awesome to us. He's introduced us to so many barbers,
thanks,
and we.
Well, I count y'all as my friend, so.
Well, we count you as a friend as well, friend.
I fucking enjoy listening to y'all. It's my day off, and I'm fucking listening to Hair Industry. I've done that since the day I found out about it. Every friggin' Monday, I listen to podcasts. I'm cleaning my house, washing clothes, and I'm listening to podcasts. That's what I do on Mondays.
Bro, you should see the smile on my face right now.
That's what I do.
Cool,
I enjoy it.
Man.
And it's,
Appreciate it, bro.
I get to hear other sides of people's stories and stuff.
Right.
I think that the whole era we're in now with this whole audio thing, I think it's really cool. So, and it's something I don't have to sit and do. I can do other shit and listen to you.
But that's the amazing thing about podcasts. I mean, not just our podcast, but any podcast. It's so passive listening.
Yeah.
And for me, like I'm a sponge for information.
Right.
So it's such an easy way to get information while I'm cutting the grass or while I'm doing.
And I'm a multitasker. I'll do 100 things at once. So
At 100 miles an hour.
At 100 miles an hour the whole time.
So that's awesome. Mr. Kurtis Lawrence.
Kurtis Lawrence.
He's always been Kurtis the Stash to me. So that
I don't think a lot of people don't really know my last name. So.
I
No,
didn't.
'cause
I
it's
knew
funny.
about 4 minutes ago.
Before the podcast started, Katie's like, what's his last name? I said,
Fuck, I don't know.
Stash.
Stash.
What's his middle name?
Yeah.
The. Kurtis the Stash.
Right.
Well, there's been TikTok. When I opened a TikTok account, I did that. I put my first name and then
The Stash.
The is my middle name and then Stash is my last name, so it would come out as Kurtis the
Kurtis the
Stash.
Stash. I love it. Stash. Kurtis the.
Kurtis the.
That's awesome, Mr. Kurtis. Once again, thank you for the friendship over the year. Thank you for spending this hour with us, and thanks for telling your story. Thanks for being brave enough to tell your story because I know it's tough, and you said you hadn't told it much.
I hadn't. There's very few in the. It's embarrassing in a way. I mean,
Sure.
it was weed, I went to jail, whatever. But for a long time, you have that stigma on you about that's the reason why I went to jail for weed.
That's so
because
silly.
I now have a prison record. I'm a rapist, a murderer. Just because I went to prison, but you don't know what I went to prison for unless I tell you what I went to prison for.
Right.
Now you have all those friends that are those things. So now when you start walking up these convention centers and people walking on the other side of the hallway.
Yeah, this podcast might get me in a little trouble.
Look, he came on to do the podcast, and now he'll never have a job again.
Yeah, right.
You can't lie anymore, sir.
Yeah, well, Kevin, if you're listening, I'm coming to London.
He better listen.
Right? Yeah, a matter of fact, I'm sure he is.
I'm sure he is.
Well, he's changing Theo's diaper.
That's it, man. So, Mr. Kurtis Lawrence, the Stash, Kurtis the Stash, thank you very, very much for joining us on your day off. Hey, so there it is. Hey, this is a message that we've been trying to bring, I don't know, for the last couple of months, actually since we started the podcast. Hey, so if you like the podcast or if you find that it's useful, please leave us a review, a 5-star review on iTunes. Leave us a rating and a review.
But if you don't like it, forget about it.
Yeah, totally forget about this message. We also want to thank Sarah and Blaine from Pretty Gritty. Sarah and Blaine, they are a band out of Portland, Oregon, and we just want to thank them very much for allowing us to use their song, Pleased to Meet You, on our podcast. That's cool. I think you can find. Actually, you can find their music on iTunes.
Peace and hair grease.